Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-stream, today we're looking at a couple of alien implant stories, folks. One, this man finds a weird incision in his hand that could be indicative of something being put into his body. The others, this mother and son, find these weird things in their mouths. Both stories are certainly interesting, but we'll start off with this story. Why is there an incision in my palm? And hear all about this man finding this weird, cut in her hand. Either way, let's get into it now by reading this brief blurb from it before we get into the actual story itself. The overwhelming urge to go back to sleep prevailed. Why didn't I take a photo? Why didn't I wake anyone else up? Why do I touch it? I don't know. It was unbelievable. This occurred on October 15th, 2021. In the early morning, I live in the Chicago suburb of Tinley Park, Illinois. BTW, I live a few houses away from the Chicago Mothman sighting that the dog walker reported to you in 2017. So this might be a similar phenomena, folks. And this time, instead of basically seeing the Mothman, this guy found a cut in his hand he couldn't explain. So as we said, folks, could be indicative of an alien implant. Either way, let's read on. I was sleeping and something woke me up for a second. I tried to go right back to sleep, but my right hand was hurting. It started to hurt more and more until it hurt severely. I sat up and looked at my hand under my phone light. What I saw made me say, no, no, no. There was a pencil eraser-sized incision in the middle of my palm. The skin wasn't removed. There was still a small, like the point of a pencil, pin-sized piece of skin attached to my hand. It had an orange liquid around the incision and a shiny liquid like a liquid Band-Aid. Shiny, glass-like, clear liquid over it all, about the size of a dime. That honestly kind of sounds terrifying, folks. I mean, he had a pain in his hand that was so painful it woke him up. It sounds like these aliens jabbed something right into his hand, maybe implanting, as I said, something into it, and this liquid gel, this stuff might have been applied to the wound to speed up the healing process, so when this woman woke up in the morning, she wouldn't have any wound or evidence suggesting that she'd basically had anything done to her. This really feels like, to me, folks, like something happened that these, beings literally tagged him like basically a deer. Either way, let's read on. I couldn't believe what I saw. I had an overwhelming urge to go back to sleep, but I couldn't. I had to look at it again. I didn't want to look at it again. I looked at it again, and I knew it was not normal. I knew this was serious and real. I tried to wake up my boyfriend. I told him, get up. There's a hole in my hand. I was smacking his shoulder. He said, go back to sleep. There's nothing wrong with you. He would not look at my hand. All he wanted to do was go back to sleep. I looked at it for the third time and just shook my head and said, this is nuts. This is crazy. The cat must have done that. I lay back down and I just would not believe what I was seeing. The overwhelming urge to go back to sleep prevailed. Why didn't I take a photo? Why didn't I wake anyone else up? Why do I touch it? I don't know. It was unbelievable. I woke up the next morning not thinking of it at all, not remembering anything until my boyfriend woke up and said, oh yeah, sarcastically, what happened to the hole in your hand? All of a sudden, I remembered it all, and I looked at my hand immediately. Not a trace of it was there. I know what I saw, and I don't think there's been a day since then that I don't think about it, worry about it, and am freaked out about it. I've tried telling a few close friends and family. They don't even want to hear it. They even tell me it didn't happen. I know what happened. I know what I saw. I know it was real. It was a perfectly surgical, perfect incision with strange liquid. I want to know what happened to me. If this has happened to anyone else, in finishing, I was not supposed to see that. Oh, I agree with O. She probably wasn't supposed to wake up or even remember any of this. Remember, when she did wake up in the, morning, she didn't remember any of that at first until her boyfriend reminded her. It sounds like maybe she was already under some sort of suggestion not to remember it. Because, you would think that maybe she would, especially if it was a dream or if there was maybe a possibility that her hand was still hurt. But no, it sounds like she didn't think about that. But it sounds like, thanks to her boyfriend, no matter how much of a jerkwad he was, he basically made sure that she did remember it. So maybe that was a good thing, because maybe she's actually the victim of repeat abductions. And this last time, maybe, they didn't erase everything and she remembered it. Either way, very interesting, folks. But let's move on to the next story. Iowa woman and son discover living organisms in their mouths. Could these be some sort of living alien implants, folks? Let's find out as we read this brief blurb from this article as well. In the morning, I found something in my mouth, so I went to the bathroom and pulled out with my fingers a strange bit of tissue, an organic living animal. I don't know what it was. I put it in the drain. It was a fall night in 2019. I live in Des Moines, Iowa. I went to sleep, waking up around 2 a.m. As I had read the kitchen clock. Something was off. It didn't feel right, so I got up to check the house. I, being a single mother with a son at the time, was concerned when I switched on the kitchen light. I looked at all the doors. They were locked. I could clearly see no need to check, but to my horror, the door handle turned. I saw the knob turning. I was petrified to say the least. The lock undone right in front of my eyes. The door to the outside of the lounge room was open, and the door to the garage was now open. I walked over and checked the glazed security door. Odd, they were both still locked, just the internal wooden doors opened and unlocked right in front of my eyes. I walked over and locked them, closing the door. It sounds like the trauma of maybe some sort of possible abduction and implant of whatever was now in her mouth, folks, was what probably woke her up, folks. Maybe they didn't do a good enough job of basically, sedating or basically, I guess, making sure this woman was conked out. And due to that, she woke up. Now she was checking her house and she found the doors, some of them unlocked. And this was probably a truly, as I said, from the reading here, this truly frightened her. But what was going to happen next was probably even more frightening, folks. So let's read that now as well. In the morning, I found something in my mouth, so I went to the bathroom and pulled out with my fingers a strange bit of tissue, an organic living animal. I don't know what it was. I put it in the drain. Then my son walks into the bathroom. Until this day, it still makes me cry. He said, "Mom, I have something in my mouth." I was shocked and horrified to put my fingers in his mouth to find the exact replica lodged in between his back teeth and inner cheek. I took it out, and because I was next to the sink in the bathroom, into it went. What happened that night? What happened to me and my son? The horror of the unknown. I speak the truth, yet I live in fear of the horror. I witnessed before my eyes what was that in my boy's mouth and mine. I only pray that my son was not harmed by something. No one believes yet that I speak the truth. I know what I witnessed, what I touched, and what I discarded was not natural D. Well, I am on the fence about this, folks. I am sorry that this happened to both this woman and her son, but she should have kept the evidence of what she and her son had in their mouths. Now, folks, this is very strange. It's unlike other alien implant stories because the witness easily removed them, from her and her son's mouths. So it makes me think that maybe these were some sort of things that were supposed to quickly dissolve or decay into nothingness, leaving no evidence behind before the experiencers wake up. Because the other, thing I'm thinking about here is that maybe these alien beings left these things in these people's mouths because they wanted them to find them. I don't know. Maybe to leave them with some sort of physical evidence. That, it doesn't really make sense. But I can't basically really square it with what I normally read with these stories, folks. Usually implants are put in places where, the witnesses can't easily get at them. So this makes no sense. This might be a first. Either way, very, very interesting, folks. There's also a note, so let's read on. It seems to me that this was a possible abduction scenario. These situations are rarely singular. Sometimes entire families over several generations experience repeated abductions. I have to agree with basically this note here, folks. This really does feel like it was basically a generational abduction encounter here, folks. Both the mother and son were abducted and perhaps subjected to some sort of experimental procedures, leaving these organic, things, maybe some sort of organic technology in their mouths. And as I said, folks, why, we just don't know. It really feels like these organisms were just left there for the witnesses to find. Now, that makes no real sense to me, folks. As I said, unless there's some other thing I'm not seeing here. So maybe these organisms were to instantly destroy themselves after the abduction. I don't know. Either way, very interesting, but we're at the end, folks. So please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications. And please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.